much admiration. Thank you very much. How much I admire Sam Hirsch. And so, Sam, as you mentioned, that we've been friends for a long time and competitors in this space too. And I will tell you that there is nobody better to be a competitor with because you're kind and considerate and a really great human being. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be able to
You
do this with you.
that
So
that's a great
today,
way to start the recording. I hit the
that's
recording right
exactly
for
right.
you to
Right,
say
right
that. So
on there.
perfect.
That's right. So today we get a chance to talk about stop building e-learning like it's 2010, why e-learning still takes months to build, and how to fix it. And of course, we are going to go ahead and head on. First off, if you would like to be able to have Sam's information, make sure to take a screenshot right now of that of this particular slide, and make sure that you have that on there. You got his phone, you got his website, email address, all those pieces on there. And I'll give you three, two, one to go ahead and do that. And let's go ahead and do mine as well. So this is my contact information. Of course, my Calendly link and all those pieces are in there. And if you would please just go ahead and you can use that QR code to be able to create a meeting with me if you wish, because my bet is by the time this is over, you might want to know some more about the things that we're doing around e-learning specifically. And I'm super excited about having the opportunity to be able to chat with you. Typically, what I do is I make these pretty engaging, where I have a chance to be able to kind of ask a bunch of questions and then get a bunch of feedback back and so on. Instead, in this one, I'm just going to go straight through. And so, with that, know that it is okay for you to be able to ask questions as much as you wish. Sam is going to be on the lookout in the chat over here, and I've got it right off over to my right hand side here. So please know that you are welcome to go and to reach out in the chat and let me know that if you've got a question or anything along those lines, we can do. In addition to that, I have time directly after this call. I'm going to go ahead and place my own personal Zoom link right in the chat. And so that way, if you'd like to be able to join me after the call, you can. And then we're going to get a chance to be able to like actually use the tool that we're going to show you here as we go. All right. So with that, without further ado, my name is Dan Streeter. I'm the CEO of Mission Fuel, and we build e-learning. Which is pretty neat. Okay, so today the presentation basically is in four parts: the old school with new tools, the what now, and the what next. And so with that, let's go ahead and dive on in to the old school. And so the very first part, of course, we're going to take you way, way, way back to the year 2010. And of course, that's what the presentation title is: Stop Building E-Learning Like It's 2010. And we think like, why do you care about 2010 and why in the world does that even matter? Well, a bunch of stuff happened in 2010. First off, of course, we know that President Obama was in office. We know that there was Dora the Explorer was out there, right, with backpack and boots and Swiper. And of course, we also know that we had Madagascar, like big movies, all that sort of stuff. All of that becomes important here in a little while. But with that, we also had something else occur, which rocked the world, and it was the first generation iPad release, which is kind of crazy. Here, Steve Jobs is holding up that iPad, and that iPad revolutionized e learning. So much so that this happened. And if you happen to be an instructional designer, you would take a look at this and you'd be like, oh my gosh, we started back in 1998 was really when we started to get going. Truth be known, like e-learning as a discipline really only started, what, not even 20 years ago or 20 some odd years ago, right? Not very long ago. It had just gotten started. So with that, what we know is that over the course of time, it built up all the way to this point of 2010, where we see this dramatic increase in the amount of e-learning that's produced, or in e-learning that money is invested in. And we might see, well, why in the world did this happen in terms of the iPad and such, and kind of what happens next? Well, what happens next, of course, is e-learning now explodes. When we take a look at the amount of money that's going to be invested in e-learning now, 378 billion, all the way up to $2 trillion will be invested in e-learning over the course of the next 10 years. And you might say, why in the world is that the case? Well, one is because it's more easily accessible. Two is because we know that we are currently in this great displacement, right? Where a lot of people are going to be moving away from certain jobs, being displaced by artificial intelligence and other economic forces, and then moved into other jobs that will be created. And because of that great shift that will occur in the economy, it will become necessary to be able to reskill them. And so if you're in the e-learning space, say thank you to Steve Jobs and Apple because they revolutionized the way that e-learning is done. And they, of course, have provided the opportunity to be able to, of course, deliver e-learning in a way that allows for greater opportunity for instructional designers, which is pretty cool. So you're welcome, as Steve Jobs would say. All right. Taking us back to 2010, everybody, of course, revels in that and say, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could just go back 15 years? Well, I want to quickly remind you that 20 or 15 years ago, back in 2010, it took 200 hours and $20,000 to be able to build 1 hour of e-learning. Crazy to be able to think. 200 hours, $20,000 to be able to build 1 hour of e-learning. Now, you might say, well, where in the world do you get that number from? Well, actually, it was from a widely published study that everybody in the instructional design space relied upon. It was from this group called the Chapman Alliance. And effectively, what they did is they said, hey, we know that people are out there doing the e-learning thing, they're building e-learning, but nobody knows how long it actually takes to be able to build it. So they put together the numbers. And lo and behold, the numbers showed that from an instructor-led training standpoint, as you can see there, we're talking about 22 hours to every 1 hour of instructor-led training. The basic of instructor-led training would take 49 hours as an example. What we're going to focus on is going to be the level 2 e-learning. So the basic interactive stuff that most of us come to think of as e-learning. And as you can see on there, it basically takes a look at this 184-hour mark. That's going to be the point where we say that's what it's going to take to be able to build basic e-learning. A few interactions here and there, 1 hour worth, basic continuing education, that sort of thing. 184 hours is what the Chapman Alliance said. So moving forward, that's what everybody used, including me as a sales guy, and my bet, including Sam as a sales guy. Whenever he talked about instructional design, he would say, hey, it's going to take 200 hours to be able to build. And if you multiply that out, of course, at $100 an hour, which is what the Chapman Alliance had in the year 2010, now we're talking $18,000 to be able to build 1 hour of e-learning. So we're talking $20,000 to be able to build 1 hour of e-learning. Impossible. Like, think about the associations that could actually pull that off. Unless they have literally like money to burn or coffers to be able to burn. Like, how in the world do you come up with $20,000 to be able to build 1 hour of e-learning? It takes a lot of time and energy and effort to be able to build up a savings account that then you say, okay, we're going to go ahead and take a risk on e-learning. The other part, of course, that comes about is we say, hey, we're going to take this risk on e-learning. And when it comes to the return on revenue or return on investment, well, it's cost our members so much to be able to get to this point. How can we then turn around and try to be able to sell it to them? So you see where the rub comes in around things like offering education for free or offering it at a discount or something along those lines. So trying to be able to figure out how to be able to make this work is a struggle. So what we've learned, of course, 200 hours, $20,000 to be able to build 1 hour of e-learning. Whenever we think about like what actually is it when we say, 1 hour of e-learning and kind of, what that means, what we're going to do is I'm going to see if I can grab this link here quickly. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just a second. Let me see if I can grab this guy. And here we go. I'm going to show you basically what I mean by e-learning and what I mean specifically by this level 2 e-learning. All of you have seen e-learning like this in the past. I want to make sure that I'm sharing my sound. I'm literally going to just share with you 2 slides because then you'll say, oh, I know what that is. And this is basically what a typical e-learning looks like when it comes to a basic level 2 Chapman Alliance e-learning. We built the logo on there. We just have a tool called video. If you want to know about it, let me know. But there it is. This is a course for the North Carolina Home Builder Association.
Welcome to the Land Development course. From understanding market dynamics to procurement, you will gain valuable insights into how successful
All right.
development.
All of you have seen courses like this. This is Storyline 360, normal course. And if you know Articulate Storyline, that's basically what this is produced in. They have another tool that's called Rise. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about Storyline 360 courses. And if we go and we take a quick look here.
Imagine initiating a development project without.
All right. And so now all of a sudden I've got a scenario, right? The imagine and so on. And then I go ahead and I can come on down here and you can see that there's even a case study and a knowledge check. right? So a basic true false knowledge check. So we're talking about basic interactions. We're talking about basic text on slide, voiceover, 200 hours to be able to produce. Crazy to think that that's what it would take to be able to pull that off. But it did for a long, long time. So if we go ahead and now we take a look at 2026, Sam, right at the beginning of the call, you mentioned a story specifically about 200 hours and around $20,000. Would you tell the story about what you were mentioning?
Yeah, I was sharing with a consultant. I mentioned I was doing this webinar and she said, "Oh, I feel good. I hear those numbers, $20,000, for an hour of content or 15,000 for an hour of content." She said, because I was tasked as a consultant to build to find some way to build courses. And she said, I got a quote for $150,000 for a few hours of content, and my mind was blown. And she's like, so I negotiated them down. So I feel good that I actually did get below market rate once I negotiated them down a bit.
Isn't that crazy to be able to think of like even 8 hours worth of content can end up costing $150,000? And truth be known, if we go and we take a look at the inflationary standard, if we take the courses that we had from the Chapman Alliance for that $18,000, and then we go ahead and we inflation adjust it, it would actually end up putting it nearly $30,000 to be able to build 1 hour of e-learning. So if you've got somebody that's internal that isn't necessarily using, some sort of tools, or at least trying to be able to kind of advance it, the likelihood is their per hour cost has increased. And so therefore we're looking at somewhere in the neck of the woods of $27,000 to $30,000 to be able to build 1 hour of e-learning. Crazy to be able to think that that's what it costs to be able to do. And it does. So if we go ahead and we say, all right, from an instructional designer's perspective, like where actually is this time going? So I look at this from the lens of this tool called Addy. I see that we've got lots of instructional designers in the room, which is awesome. And I see some folks that are not necessarily all that familiar with instructional design. So I'll give you just a quick rundown. Whenever we think about models of instructional design or the way to think about instructional design, there's two primary models that most people think about. One is called Addy. The other one is called SAM. Addy is ADDIE. You'll see those letters right there on the screen. And SAM stands for the successive approximation model. Doesn't matter. We're not going to use that in this context, although we could. Same notion as far as like what they're doing. They have a little bit of like a kickstart process and that sort of stuff with SAM, but truthfully, it is just, they're pretty similar. All right, so we're going to take a look at the Addy model because that's what Chapman looked at. And what they said was about 10 to 15% of time is spent in the analysis phase. The needs analysis, audience analysis, who are we going to teach it to, that sort of thing, task analysis, figuring out like the SMA interviews, subject matter expert interviews, those sort of things. Then 15 to 25% is going to be spent in design. What are those learning objectives, the course outline, the storyboards, instructional strategies, decisions? Then we're going to spend some time in development. This is where the bulk of the time gets spent in our authoring tools like Storyline 360 or Captivate or some tool like that. We're going to build those slides and maybe in PowerPoint, something like that. And then we're going to go ahead and program those interactions. We're going to create assessments. We're going to spend 15 to 25% getting feedback from the subject matter experts and waiting. We'll explain that in just a second. And then we're going to do the implementation. We're going to publish it. We're going to put it on the learning management system. And then we're going to get over to evaluation. But the truth is, we never actually get to evaluation. We never actually get to the point to be able to say, oh, did this work or didn't it? We publish it, we put it up, we notice if people completed it or didn't, and then that's it. We don't actually know if the learning had an impact in any way whatsoever. So now what we've got is basically the Addy model, right? We know that this is where the time is going. And if we really dig deep in this, what we learn is that actual true thinking that's going on, the strategy that's going on, most of that is actually like less than half of the time that we're spending. Actually, less than 40% of the time that we're actually spending is spent in actual true critical thinking. More than half of that, 60% or more, is actually spent in production and waiting. And so that's the part where I'm like, oh my gosh, when we think about that, production means manual, which likely can be automated, and waiting is wasted. And that means that we're basically spending so much time and energy in doing things that we don't necessarily need to. And so because of that, now we see this number of 200 hours. It's there, And what in the world are we going to do with it? Because truthfully, where we are right now in 2026, we are still in the same boat that we were in 2010, even though we have all these fancy dancy tools, which leads me directly to the next part, which is old school with new tools. Now, when it comes to old school with new tools, I happen to know a little something about this because I literally helped to write the book. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but there's my name on a book called Old School with New Tools. Kind of a crazy deal. I happened to write this book with a friend of mine named Tim Brown a long time ago, basically to teach salespeople how to be better salespeople and by using technology. So we would use these kind of fancy apps and these use the tools and so on, and they would go out there and then they would hopefully become better salespeople. But the truth is, it didn't work. In fact, what happened when those salespeople used those tools, it was designed to be able to make them more efficient, but it simply didn't work. And so, although we used some old school techniques, the new tools that were brought in, most of them were pretty ineffective. And the reason for it is because it didn't focus on the process of actually being a salesperson, shifting a mindset, but also shifting the actual work itself. We just basically layered bad tool or good tools on top of bad process, and therefore not a lot of good happened. So I learned something from that. What I learned was that we need to be able to have a process that we actually need to be able to follow. And there's lots of people out there that actually have some ideas around process, but nobody really knows for sure. But I want to be able to give you at least one name because I know that there are some of you in this room who say, I want to be able to figure out like who's got the next best idea, like who's going to replace Addie, who's going to replace Sam. How are we going to end up doing it? Well, there's a person named Dr. Philippa Hardman, wonderful, super bright, does amazing work in this space, and she has come up with a model. That model is actually called DOMS. It's called Discovery Outcomes Mapping Storyboard. There's a post going on around about her that she actually posted just a few days ago that I'm going to basically take a look at her model. She's got the beginnings of the framework here, which is right, but the actual like application of it, that's where I'm going to take a look at it from a slightly different lens. But if you want to know a little bit more about like where the next Addie is going to come from, Doms is likely going to be that space. She's in the academic space. She's doing a great job of making her voice known, and she's building some really interesting stuff when it comes to the actual e-learning building. And one of those is this. Basically, if you're living in the instructional design space, basically it's analysis, design, development, implementation, and of course, evaluation. You remember seeing that just a second ago when it comes to Addie, right? So there's our model. But take a look over on the left-hand side. The things that she's put on there are going to be vibe coding, delegate to AI, and create with AI. That's awesome. Now, my bet is, though, is that most of the people that are in this room, even if you're an instructional designer, when I think about vibe coding, are like, vibe coding? What's that? Like, there's not a know about like with that. Also, when I take a look at delegation, it says build automation. My guess is that the vast majority of you in this room have not built an automation before, and that's okay. But this is requiring an instructional designer to basically become an AI expert along the way, which I think you can do, but I'm not certain that it serves the highest and best use of your time in terms of being an instructional designer. That being said, let's go and dig a little bit deeper into this model and kind of where we're going in terms of the overall this question of how we're going to overlay AI, for example, on top of a tool like Addie or like Sam. So Addie, very first part is going to be analysis, right? Well, she mentions a little bit about the tools that we need to be able to do it. Remember, we're going to brainstorm, we're going to distinguish causes, we're going to figure out if this is like the correct solution, that sort of thing. Well, what tools are we going to use? Well, I'm going to use Zoom recordings. I'm going to use a presentation that was delivered. I'm going to use the standard operating procedure. I'm basically going to then put those things into tools like ChatGPT or Claude. I might use a Zoom recording, but you get the idea. And if I'm really kind of sophisticated, I might use Notion, but you get the idea about what exactly are those AI tools that we're going to try to overlay in the analysis phase. Then let's look at the design side. Now, on the design side, this is where it gets kind of fun, right? I get to build learning objectives. I get a chance to be able to figure out like what exactly are the trade-offs that we want to make, what are the interactions that we want to do, those sort of things I'm figuring out, which is kind of cool. But again, I'm using the same basic tools. I'm using Chat, I'm using Gemini. I might use a Miro board or FigJam. If I'm really sophisticated, again, I might use Notion. But the truth is that I'm kind of going to stick to those elements, the Chat, the Gemini, the Claude, and so on. Then, if we take a look at that one step further, we're like, okay, now we get to the good stuff, right? I get a chance to be able to really kind of accelerate the things that I'm doing because I get a chance to be able to use tools like Gamma or 11 Labs or Descript and Synthesia. I get a chance to kind of build avatars. All cool stuff. But look at the number of tools that are on here. It's enormous, the amount of stuff that you could potentially do. And you could literally spend days trying to be able to sift through, even in Google Labs. Like, what are the cool things that you could do? And by the way, found a very cool thing called Mixboard. Gotta check it out. It's awesome that you've got it. Sam, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. You said, what AI tools is everyone here using for course authoring? Please answer that question there. I would love to be able to know that. Most people out there are likely using a tool like Gamma, like a beautiful.ai, and maybe an InVideo, that sort of thing. You're starting out with ChatGPT. That's my guess. And I would love if you would go ahead and fill in the question there. Okay, so here we go. So basically, we've got these AI tools that we're using in development, right? Which is great. Now let's go and fast forward that. Then we go ahead and move forward a little bit when it comes to the other AI tools when it comes to implementation. All learning management systems, I shouldn't say all, many learning management systems are in the position where they're trying to be able to figure out what to be able to do with this AI thing. And so what they're doing is they're basically overlaying AI onto their tool. So we take a look at Docebo. I think they've got this thing called Notes, and then Cornerstone has this thing called Tags. And they're trying to be able to basically use this legacy system and then basically take the AI stuff and then overlay it in on top of it. And whether it's LearnWorlds or GrowZone or whomever, that's kind of the level or the look that they're trying to be able to have at it. With really one exception to that, and that's Oasis. And if you have not checked out the stuff that's going on with Oasis, specifically when it comes to the learning management system and AI tools that are within it, they're doing it the right way. And they're thinking about AI in the right way, where they're not just simply trying to overlay the AI tools in that context. And so Sam, I'm not certain that because I'm sort of landing on you now. If you want to be able to talk about it, you can. And if not, that's totally okay. I'm going to continue on, but just know that Oasis is doing it right.
I would just say I want to be mindful of time, so keep going, Dan.
Deal. Okay, awesome. Ian, thank you very, very much for that. Suno, ChatGPT, Midjourney. Totally agree with all three of those. Midjourney is a great image generator, and so really well done on that. All right, awesome. So with that, here's the other stuff that you need to be able to know is that when we talk about things like ChatGPT and Claude and such, we get to this evaluation phase, right? So we've gone through all of the phases, but the truth is it still takes so much time to be able to build. And so when I think about it, still no evaluation is actually occurring whether or not it's actually effective. And so here we've gone and we spend all of this time, hundreds of hours to be able to build a piece of e-learning. We get it done and we're like, we're out. And then we have no idea whether or not it actually is impactful or drove any sort of result. Or we can even go back and say, well, you know what, that worked and this didn't. Let's go ahead and change it up next time. There's no way to be able to do that reasonably well. So with that, know that although I love the Downs model, I think that the thinking is right. What we're basically trying to do is use old school with new tools, and it's not really helping. When we think about it, for us, as in Mission Fuel, we have worked this problem to the end. We have tried. And so when it comes to the AI tools, they basically brought us from that 200 to 1 figure down to 68 to 1, and we got stuck. We couldn't figure out how to be able to make it any faster because of this problem, where basically we were trying to overlay the tools on top of a not great process. So we couldn't make it go any faster. And I think if you went ahead and you asked instructional designers out there in the world, what exactly is it that you're doing in terms of trying to be able to get it down fast? They're going to say, we're using those tools. And you're going to say, like, how quickly can you get it done? Most oftentimes, they're still going to say somewhere between 100 and 200 hours to be able to get done. One of the things that we have really valued is being able to pass the savings, if you will, that we have been able to figure out when it comes to the driving down of the number of hours, and then figuring out how we can go ahead and pass that along to clients. And so for us, people say, well, you guys are coming in at half of what other people are. And then I say, yeah, and that's on purpose because we're able to do it so much quicker. And that's going to be the piece that's known. And we're going to cover that here in just a second about how it's possible and what can happen next. Okay, so know that AI tools can help, but they are not the solution. You cannot take an old tool or old school, put new tools on it, and actually make it effective. So now, let's take a look at the things that were actually causing the problem, and then we can go ahead and we can dive into where exactly we go from here. There are basically 5 barriers that most people are saying these are the things that are preventing us from being able to do like great work in the world when it comes to instructional design. Number 1 is going to be limited resources. They have limited money, they have limited time, they have limited people. Almost always, that's the biggest barrier that people face, right? 67% of the people said this in an ATD study. There it is. Solo teams. Most instructional designers are actually solo. Even in relatively big companies, they may have one trainer or they may have one instructional designer. Associations are prime for this, right? They have one person. Even most instructional design teams are mom and pop shops. They're 1-2 people, almost always. And I should say the vast majority of them out there are that way. So that's going to be barrier number 1. Barrier number 2 is the subject matter expert problem. And there really is kind of a problem around this because the subject matter expert has other stuff to do. Almost always, we're in this hurry up and wait space, right? 30% of instructional designers say that one of the biggest hurdles really is the subject matter, getting their input on the e-learning. And then, of course, we also have association subject matter experts. They have a day job. And so, they can't go out there and create content. But from an instructional designer's perspective, that's what we need in order to make it happen. Thank you very much for that. Amen, Dawn. Totally agree with you, right? You have a day job. You can't go out there and create e-learning or to write scripts or to, any of that sort of stuff. That's the thing that kills a project. Number 3. It's going to be process inefficiencies. Most of the time, instructional designers are teachers, right? Most teachers are not necessarily process oriented. Even me, I'm not process oriented. I'm the guy who kind of does all the things. And I get a chance to be able to do that because, well, that's kind of my role. And I have people who do understand process and really do a great job of it. And so when it comes to that inefficiency side of things, what we know is that most instructional designers follow no actual process. They follow no process when it comes to review cycles, and they typically don't do templates. And so then every project is a brand new project. Then you throw on top of that scope creep, where the scope really wasn't very well defined to begin with. And then you throw on top of that where you're like, well, can we add this one more thing? Or can we do just this other thing? Or that learning objective wasn't quite right. I know that we're at the end, but it wasn't quite right. Can we come back, right? So what happens is then we end up in scope creep. And that ends up as a major issue for us as instructional designers. Then barrier number 4. This is legacy tools, right? The problem that we've got is when it comes to the outdated software piece, is it where you're going to be using tools that are out there that many times are not fitting or don't necessarily do the thing that we really need them to do when it comes to e-learning production. And so what we want to figure out is how do we kind of overcome that? And of course, we're dealing with that in terms of learning management systems the same way all the time. And you probably know this as well. Whenever you publish a score module, you're just praying that it's going to work and that there isn't some sort of an issue that comes along with it. So a lot of times we have to have several tools, storyline, video creation, voiceover tools, and so on. Lots of heavy media production, and then, of course, lots of troubleshooting when it comes to the actual publishing of this thing called SCORM. SCORM basically is a wrapper. It's essentially a way to publish a file. That's really all it is. It essentially holds things as a zip file. You rip the file apart, you bring the file back together, and it becomes a SCORM file that you can place on any learning management system, or I should say most learning management systems. Okay, so now, barrier number 5. This was interesting, is that barrier number 5, the experience factor, wasn't really seen as a barrier. In fact, only 1 out of 5 people who did not necessarily have instructional design skills said that it is not a problem, that they don't feel like not having the instructional design skill or the degree or anything along those lines is really an issue, which is really kind of an interesting piece. So here we've got our 5 barriers, right? Right along the way. Barrier 1, limited resources. SME bottleneck, process inefficiencies, legacy tools and infrastructure, and the experience factor. And guess what? If we took a look at 2010, we would be saying the very same thing. Isn't that crazy to be able to think that if we look back in 2010, we'd be saying the same thing? Now, I know that thank you, Ian. So I know that for a second, whenever I take a look at this list, I'm like, wait a second, legacy tools? Did legacy tools exist back in 2010? Yes. In fact, think of SCORM. SCORM had really just come about. It had been around in terms of the military. It was a Department of Defense kind of a tool. But the truth is that it had just come about. There was a big fight over SCORM 1.2 and SCORM 2004. And then there was this fight over SCORM XAPI and so on. So the point is that there's always been sort of these legacy tools and infrastructure problems that have existed, and they will continue to exist, at least for the foreseeable future. But the point is the same problems, the same barriers that we saw in 2010 are the same barriers that we see today in 2026. No wonder, even if we choose to be able to use those old school, the old school process, overlay new tools on top of it, we're not getting anywhere. So with that, here's what we do. Now we're just about halfway through, so you need to stick with me. So there's very cool stuff that's about to happen. So here we are, the old school, and then the old school with new tools is done. We're now going to focus on the what now and what next, and those are both going to come right together. And so here we go. First thing to be able to know is this. We wanted to be able to figure out how we could actually replace the model. Not necessarily Addie or Sam, not necessarily the DOM model, but instead replace it all together. I don't know what to call it, but let's just figure out like how to fix it. How do we just replace it and not necessarily have to be able to put a term to it? So we were on a mission to be able to figure out how we could get that 68 to 1 that most people are at 200 to 1 down to less than 10 to 1. So with that, we have a new way forward. If you have the opportunity to be able to take a look at that LinkedIn link that I happen to put in there way early on here, I'll go ahead and I'll grab it again just in case you happen to miss it.
I got
You are
it, Dan.
welcome. Yep, you got it. Sweet. And so with that, you are welcome to go and to take a look at this, like the post and all that sort of stuff along the way. But don't leave me. Make sure that you're sticking with our presentation here. But like, rate, share, all that sort of stuff would be awesome. We now have a new way forward when it comes to instructional design. Instructional design, basically centric automations, and we also have a flexible production model. So let me explain both of those things to you, basically how they work. So here we go. All right, awesome. Thank you very much, Sam. Now, first things first, we don't know what the model is. And truthfully, everybody is guessing. If you saw my feed around the instructional design parts, everyone is saying that the model is broken, but no one has figured out how to be able to actually fix it. And so everybody's guessing, and truthfully, we don't care. It's simply time to build. And it is time to be able to figure out how we get our tool in your hands. And so the Mission Fuel Manifesto looks like this. Instructional design teams have the most important job on the planet. We talked about this before. There's the great displacement that's about to occur and the great reskilling that needs to occur with it. And so with that, know that 1 billion people on the planet have got to be reskilled in the next 3 to 5 years. 1 billion people need to be reskilled. So because of that, that's where the instructional designer is the most important job on the planet today. We have to be able to figure out a way to re-educate how we go about our everyday work world. Second part, speed and quality no longer compete. They can be right with one another, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by that here in just a second. Speed and quality do not need to compete. Then let's go into the next one. Instructional design help should arrive how and when you need it. These are the 3 tenets that we are operating on. Instructional design teams have the most important job. Speed and quality don't compete. And instructional design help should arrive how and when you need it. You should not have to wait. If you've been an instructional designer, you've had this experience where it is a Sunday morning and you look and you're like, I have a problem. I have a project that is due on Monday. I don't know what I'm going to do about it. I can't get it done, or it's broken, or something along those lines. And so then you hunt on Fiverr. You're trying to be able to figure out what to do. You even look on Upwork. No one is available, or no one is able to help in any realistic way without feeling like a scam. We want the opportunity to be able to step in there to be able to help you provide that help when you need it. So from our perspective, we want to be the instructional design team that says, you need us on a Sunday morning, we're going to be there ready to be able to help. All right. So with that, we have an announcement. You're the first people in the world to be able to see this outside of Mission Fuel and SAM and a few assorted others. And so here's basically the tool. This is going to be essentially a quick video that Ian, our CTO, put together. And so I'm going to go ahead and share this video with you. It's a simple 1-minute video of a tool called Course Engine. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press play here. And then we're going to watch it through once. Whoops, let me try that again. We're going to watch it through once. And then after we watch it through, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to it. And then we're going to get a chance to actually talk it through as well. And so here we go. I think that I can turn on the volume. There we go. Let me turn that back on. And here's a little music while you get a chance to be able to see it in action. And then we're going to slow it down and we're going to go step by step by step, exactly what's occurring on the screen for you. All right. So here we go. No, the very first thing that's happening is that a document is being drugged and placed right into this box. All right, here we go. And that's the first run through. All right, before we move on, we're going to press the pause button here. Comments in the chat about what you just saw as I'm going to go through and basically take a quick look and take you a step through it. Val says, holy cow. I think you're right on that. Others in the room? All right. I'm going to go back through it now, and we're going to go through it step by step. Nice. Thank you, Sam. All right. And then you don't want to read the actual outputs. Fair enough, Carl. I think that you're spot on about that. And looking forward to the slowdown. We've been talking with consultants. Awesome. Very, very good. And so let's go ahead and take a quick look about exactly what we just saw. Now, remember, if you want to visit after this, I'll go ahead and I'll post my link in there, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to get a chance to be able to review it. This is the first tool of its kind in the world that's out there that will do all of the things that we're about to see truly from an instructional designer's perspective. So let's go ahead and bring this back, and we'll get a chance to kind of take a look at it. And here we go. So very first thing that you're seeing here is a way to basically drag a document in. And when that dragging of the document comes in right here, let me press play. There we go. Notice that it is what's called a vectorized. Basically, it's ripped apart and is basically set into a file structure that allows for us to be able to figure out what exactly is it that should occur with this document. So it rips it apart. And then from here, I can then tag it. In this case, it would be tagged Mission Fuel. But I'm going to go ahead and press play. And now what's happening is that, let's try that again. There we go. Basically what's happening is it's analyzing the content, right? It's tearing the document apart and it's figuring out what's the course title should be, who are the target audience, who's the target industry, and so on. We have some refinements that we're going to make around the tool. So for example, we're going to provide some instructions at the very beginning that allows for you to be able to not just upload the document, but also give instructions to it as well about what actually is it that you would like to be able to see if you wanted to be able to add those. So Dawn, great question. Right now, you can upload up to 500 megabytes. So no matter the number of files, 500 megabytes is the limit. And so, but great question. So now we go and we upload those. And then from there, what you're seeing is it will analyze the course title, who's it for, and so on. And Any document that you've got, and it actually changes it to a vector. Sorry about that, Tashi. So basically, what it's going to do is it's going to rip it apart as a paper document. Imagine like a Word document or a PowerPoint or transcript. It's then going to take that and then tear it apart. Eventually, it will then consume video as well. It basically then takes that, transcribes it, and then it will go ahead and produce it. Eventually, like way down the road, it will go ahead and take that video, splice it, figure out where in the course it should go, and actually use the actual course, the actual movie components in order to do it. It's crazy cool. The next level of things that are about to occur. All right. So now let's go ahead and press play on this. And you can see there it's vectorized. Oops, I lost my. There we go. All right. And so now it's filling in the blanks. And of course, all that, oh, darn, I'm going to get that back. Sorry about that. Okay, so all of those things in there are going to be editable along the way there. Sorry about that. And all right, so all of those things are editable in there as well, of course. And in this case, basically what it's done is it went ahead and it produced 5 separate modules, as you can see there. So now it's produced 5 modules based on that presentation that was uploaded. And then from there, basically what it does is it says, okay, now based on those 5 modules, I'm going to go ahead and press continue. So I'm going to press continue. All right, it separates. Oh, darn, it did it again. I apologize, guys. Let me go ahead and bring that back. I didn't do that in rehearsal, but that's okay. So let me go ahead and bring that forward. You get the notion about how that works. Now, the next part, of course, is it's going to go ahead and build the module description of each one of those, and then it will go ahead and build the actual course description as well. So remember, the course description typically gets built last because we want to then refer to that course description. Eventually, what will happen is we're going to be able to take, of course, pieces like this, have it saved as basically a package, and then for you to be able to then simply upload, for example, to a learning management system, or simply copy and paste into the LMS as well. And so that's going to be one item. I'm going to keep on going here. And now all of a sudden it's going to go ahead and create the course. Now from there, here is one of the modules of the course that are created. And so now all of a sudden I've got my text on screen, and I can go ahead and if I fast forward that, I can now go ahead and it already had generated the voiceover in this case. But if I went ahead, he's got the professional there. I can choose casual friendly, or I can insert my custom prompt so that way it speaks exactly the way you want it to. And then we've got our duration per slide. I can bring that up and down. I can produce 60 slides at a time. So I can produce upwards of 1 hour of content for one presentation. I can produce 10 presentations at a time. So I can produce 10 hours of content in an instant. It's kind of a crazy thing to be able to think that we can create 10 hours of content by just simply being able to put in prompts, put in context or content, and so on. All right, so let's keep on going there. Now, next up that we've got, of course, is now it's going to generate the voiceover for us, as you see there. Then the next part that it's going to do is it's actually going to generate the animations. Now, if you're a Storyline fan, which is great, you can actually download this. It holds the PowerPoint, the voiceover, and the animations. Then I upload that, and it actually holds the animations in there. No more dragging the bullets around. No more doing any of that sort of stuff. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about like templates and all those pieces here in just a second. So now if we go ahead and we fast forward this just a little bit further, now you'll see, let me keep on going there. You'll see that if you're a Storyline fan again, you'll be able to see that there's actually a player that is down in here as well that allows for you to be able to kind of figure out like where exactly should things go. And that way, if I wanted to, I could publish directly from SCORM or directly from the file to SCORM. Eventually, we'll be able to just simply do it as a web file as well, if that's important to you. But you get the notion about how this can work. All of the fields that are on here are editable and move aroundable. So as you're seeing on here, basically I have the ability to be able to see, oh, this is item number 1 that's coming in, item 2 and 3. 4 and 5, and so on. And then what happens is that basically the tool knows, oh, I know that this is going to come in at this time, and it then gives the ability to be able to then set it up from a time perspective. As always, there's always the need to be able to mess with things just a little bit along the way, right? You've always got to have the opportunity to be able to kind of touch it, to make sure that it's exactly what you want. It's never going to be perfect because that's where great instructional design comes from. This is designed to be able to get you 80% of the way there. You still need to be able to go in and make sure that the interaction actually does what you want it to, and so on. So now let's go ahead and go just a little bit further in here. One of the neat parts is if we take a look, I can export as a PowerPoint. I can export as a PowerPoint with animations, or I can export as SCORM as well. All right, let's see here. So Carrie May asked the question, we receive a lot of content with images and graphs. With Articulate's AI tool, we noticed that it couldn't incorporate those images and graphs into a module effectively. It actually ignored them. What's the capability of this tool? Great question. So in our case, basically what we're going to do is we're actually going to then upload those items. You would just simply upload them as an image here. Eventually, our tool will be able to do that. It doesn't do it currently, as I'm understanding it, basically where you wanted to upload those into the vector store and then have those displayed here. That isn't quite there yet, but give us less than 3 months, and that will be something that will be able to do. Jack, oh my gosh, you're my hero. You don't know that, Jack Corson, but truthfully, you are my hero. All right, very cool. Reminds me of Sound Labs. That's right. That's right. That's can you refine the design of prompts? Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. If the images are part of the PDF document that it contains, more than likely not. It wouldn't necessarily pull out you directly as from the book or any of that sort of stuff. You'd likely need to go ahead and to place those images here, upload them, but otherwise you would want to be able to just separate them from the PDF once we have that feature available, which we will. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a quick look at the next part. So now, and fast forward there. All right, so then he just went ahead and he took a look at all of those other items. Now, let's go ahead and go back to our presentation. And here we go. Let me see if I can, there we go. Now, here's what it does. Basically, it's going to produce e-learning like what you're seeing right here, what we saw a little earlier. Basically, we're going to have unlimited content generation, up to 10 hours of e-learning in one session, if you will, but you could do multiple sessions if you wanted. Analyze PDFs, Word, transcripts, PowerPoints, of course. What it's going to produce is learning objectives, module descriptions, course descriptions, text on slides, scripting, voiceover, instant translations. That's one of the cool parts. Once you get the course exactly the way that you want it, from a voiceover and from a text on screen perspective, then what you're going to do is copy it. You're basically going to make a quick copy of it. You're going to press the word translate, bam, done. All the content in it, including the text on the slide and voiceover, all done in terms of the translation. Really neat to be able to do. There's an SME comment management piece where basically you can include an SME to be able to look at it. Most of the time we think about that in the articulate sense, right? We look at it from a rise or a review link that we might have. Well, in this case, we're actually going to allow them access to see inside the tool where they get a chance to be able to do that. So then we're going to have published to PowerPoint, as we talked about, animated PowerPoint and SCORM, trackable quizzing and interactions. Yes, when it's published from Course Engine, it actually holds those and it actually tracks quizzing and interactions just like a Storyline file or anything along those lines does. You can upload it, of course, to Storyline, which is pretty cool if you want. We have a chat tutor that's in there. So when you get done with the course, and then it basically says, here are the things that you missed. Do you want to go back? That sort of thing. Stuff that we have coming soon, avatars, customized template, customized prompts. That's exactly where you were at, Jack, which is I want to make sure that I customize this specifically for me. Like I want to be able to do it for my organization, to have my voice, to have my content. That is definitely coming soon. In addition to that, there's going to be learner personalization, vibe coded interactions, and gamification. All that is coming when it comes to the profile. And if you're like, I don't know what vibe coding is, think of it this way. I'm going to go ahead and say, I want to be able to create a space game of making multiplication tables out of a space game. I type that in, bam, it creates it. That's what this tool will do eventually. And so those are the sort of things that we happen to have on the horizon. Really neat stuff that's coming through with Course Engine. So with that, here's the final
Dan,
part that you need. Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
another couple
Yeah.
questions. Can the system build all of the rest of the stuff/metadata needed for adding it to AMS or LMS and so on?
That is a great question. I need a bit of clarification on that, Jack. Can you give me like a little more there so I can understand, or Sam, can you explain the question so I really get it?
I'm I interpret it as like the category of the course that you would tag within an LMS, but I'll let Jack keep typing. And
Okay.
then Ian Oliver asked, how about accessibility, color contrast, fonts, that type of thing?
Great question. So you can program that with the actual template that the actual PowerPoint template that we then will build for you. So when you download it into Storyline currently, what happens is that it recognizes each of the blocks as images. So it sees them as items that need alt tags. So when you upload it currently, this won't be forever the case, but when you upload it currently, it says you've got like 400 errors in terms of accessibility. The truth is that is not the truth. But what we want to be able to do is, of course, is be able to fix that, so that's not an issue. But it does not come with the alt tags already built in there. But that's something that we're going to be able to figure out as we go. So that's a wonderful question, Ian. And as of right now, but in terms of color contrast, all that part's easy. It's not having the accessibility error that Storyline throws that can sometimes come about. Oh, great question. So Jack, that's exactly where we're going. The title, description, learning objectives, all of that it will be basically as a package that can then be placed into a learning management system. You're exactly right. Eventually, we'll be able to do that. So that is a great question. Okay, next up. All right. There are three models. Remember how I said way back here that basically what we should do is we need to be able to provide the help as you need it. Now, stick with me here because this is going to be fun because for the first time in history, we actually have that. So we have three models here at Mission Fuel. There are three. Number one model, do it yourself. Basically, you start it. You finish it. You get into the Course Engine tool. You can build ad nauseum as much as you wish. You can go ahead and build in there in any way you wish. You want to be able to upload it to Captivate? Great. You want to be able to upload it to Storyline? Great. You want to build in Course Engine? Awesome. So that's the do-it-yourself model. Now you still get our support along with that. So please know that. The next part is going to be the done with you model. Basically, you start it, we finish it. Most of the time, folks, they're like, if we could just have somebody just like wrap up the project for us, that would be great. I just need somebody to polish it, is really what I need. Great, no problem at all. You settle on the voiceover, you settle on the script, you make sure that you give us the right images, that sort of stuff. We'll build it for you. We basically then do the done for you where we polish it. I'm sorry, done with you. The next part is done for you. Basically, you give us the document, we build it, we turn it around. And many times we're able to build a full-on hour-long course, 72 hours. That literally just happened where a client gave us a course and said, is there any way we could have it done by the end of the week? We turned it around in 48 hours. Unheard of in this space because we were able to use Course Engine. Now, do we have to use Course Engine? No, but it is a place for us to begin if that's a place where that's appropriate. Not every course is appropriate for Course Engine. I want to make sure that you know that it is not appropriate that every course is built in Course Engine. So here's basically what it looks like. If you're in the do-it-yourself side of things, great. You're going to throw in your content. It's going to take you about an hour to make sure that you get all the strategy stuff done, right? Or less than an hour. It's going to take you basically less than or a little bit around an hour to be able to do the actual production side of things. Then the design and polish you're going to do. Who knows how long you choose to be able to do that, whether it's in Course Engine or so on. The expert validation, we find that it takes about 2x the amount of time that the module is. So it's a 15-minute module, plan on 30 minutes from the SME. You're going to have some back and forth in that. You're going to have some final revisions, and then you're going to have an LMS ready output. You can literally have one course done in one day. It is possible to do. And so then we move forward to the next part, which is the do-it-yourself side, right? This is basically where you decide on the strategy and the production. Then we help you to design and polish. We hand it back to you to be able to do all the expert validation if you want. Then we do the final revisions and then it's done. And then you don't have to do all the minutia stuff and all the programming stuff that most of us are not really good at. I am not a great programmer, but I've got great programmers on my team who can, of course, do that stuff. And then, of course, the final part, which is the done with you. And essentially, we're going to do it all the steps from the content to the strategy to the production and so on. All right, we have 4 minutes left. Here's the final part to know is that we basically want to be your emergency helper along the way. Somebody in this room, I am certain, has had this issue or is about to or is currently in this spot where you need help right now. Where I've got this e-learning project either as an internal part, or I've got a member program that I need to be able to do, and I need it done. And for who knows why it isn't. And so those are the type of projects that we love to be able to do. I want you to email me right now, and I want you to say help now, and I will respond to you immediately after that this webinar part gets done. Okay, and then final part is going to be 24/7 coming soon. Yes, we will actually be a 24/7 operation here shortly. And so with that, I'm not quite certain when we're going to make that switch, but we will eventually be able to do it. All right, final part. If you'd like to be able to have a demo, of course, make sure that you email me. Just say subject line demo, and we can go ahead and we can get that schedule going for you. And it says for me to share the link. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick and see if I've got it here. And of course, I missed the link. Let me see if I can grab it down here. And you can go ahead and grab that guy. I'll put it in the chat for you. And so there we go. And so, Jack, you said, I see a ton of opportunity in providing these sorts of tools very widely to SME staff and volunteers, but that we generally don't consider as a part of our formal learning portfolio. Totally agree with you on Jack. That's actually part of the reason why we created it, was to be able to fit those spaces where it doesn't necessarily always fit. And as far as like the traditional kind of e-learning projects that take a year to do, sometimes you need and want that. Sometimes you need it done now. And this gives the opportunity to be able to do both. All right, final part is going to be this. I will have a quick video for you, and then we're going to go ahead. Actually, let's go ahead and do this here quick. And then we'll do the video here at the very, very end. Sam, you got to hop off the call.
Yes, but when I hop off, I think everybody might be hopping off. So go ahead and hit play.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and while this is playing, I'm going to go ahead and drop in my private link for you. And here we go. This is 1 minute in length. And here you go.
All right, a new e-learning course. Let's hire a team.
We start with the
Oh, darn. Come on.
needs analysis, scope, alignment, project plan, storyboard, script.
I'll have a draft in 2 weeks. Legendary.
Oh, I'll build it. But it's gonna take time. Those bullets won't animate themselves, you know.
25 cents a word. Retakes cost extra.
We need a studio. Actors.
And French for Quebec?
En français, c'est 10 centimes le mot pour le texte et 12 centimes le mot pour la voix off. 3 semaines minimum. Sign right here.
Programming in French? Forget about it. No, seriously. Forget
Oh, darn it.
about it.
Of course, we'll need subject matter experts to help us build the content.
Who?
Exactly.
Okay. Is this normal?
Not anymore.
Exactly.
Build e-learning now. Do it yourself. Done with you. And done for you. Waiting is not normal. Outrun.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop my my link in here so that way you've got it. And let me grab that. Sorry, Sam, I'm keeping you. Just give me 1 second here. Show all the bookmarks. Show the book. There it is. That's the one I need. And I need to grab this guy and this guy. And I'm almost done. There we go. And I'm going to be in this room right here. Come on with me. Right there, and copy. If you need me, I'm going to be right here in this room. And there we go. So I will see you there. You have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to grab it. Sam, see you next time.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for attending.